All right, let's talk about the Democrats. Can Bernie Sanders shock Hillary Clinton in the state that elected her senator? With me now is University of Virginia Center for Politics Director Larry Sabato. All right, Larry, how competitive is the race in New York?
I would say it's competitive, but Hillary Clinton is the clear favorite. She's expected to win, though the margin's in dispute. We'll have to wait and see, but I think she'll win.
Okay, and there's a lot of delegates. What is it, 287 or something crazy like that?
It's 247 delegates plus 44 superdelegates, and that's where Hillary has a big edge automatically. Almost all of them are for her.
You know, it's amazing. Those superdelegates, I love them. I mean, talk about taking away our right to vote. I mean, we don't even vote and that she's in. But is the system, let's talk about the delegates, okay? Is the system more weighted to the delegates? So, for example, you've got Trump bringing in people who've never voted before, Larry, and Bernie Sanders bringing them in by the bucket, these young people, the millennials. So their vote is not equal in the sense that right off the bat, the delegates are weighted more heavily than they are because they're not registered, and they're certainly not superdelegates.
Yeah, and consider this. This is really interesting to me. 15% of the entire convention delegate pool is superdelegates. And Hillary Clinton's going to get 90 to 95% of those superdelegates. So right away, Sanders is behind massively. There's almost no way to catch up. In pledged delegates, probably Hillary Clinton will win, but she's not going to win by that much nationally. She'll have an edge, but it'll be a small one. It's super delegates that'll make it look like she has a large majority.
Like she's the favorite. But what about the fact that these super delegates, they can change their mind, right?
Well, they can, but they're very, very unlikely to. These are elected members of the Senate, Democratic members of the Senate, right. The party elite, the House members, party. Bill Clinton is a New York superdelegate. I think we know how he's going to vote.
But what about the fact, Larry, that you've got all of these people who are now, swinging? There are some people who are swinging. What does it take to swing a delegate? What do you do? Offer them dinner or a drink, a bottle of wine? Is that criminal? Is that corruption? I mean, there's a debate about what you can really offer a delegate. Now, having dinner with a candidate, that's not a problem. Flying them to Bermuda for a weekend to get a call from the candidate, no, I don't. I think that's very questionable. And whether it could be prosecuted, you're a better judge of that. But I would argue that if it became public, it would be very damaging to a candidate, at least in the general election, even if the primary was already decided. All right, and very quickly before you go, I mean, Bernie's won 7 of the last 7 primaries straight. Is anyone saying, gee, this guy's, got a lot of votes? Nobody cares?
Well, they are saying that. Look, here's the key consideration at this point. It's not so much the nomination. It's what all these Bernie Sanders delegates, and there are going to be hundreds and hundreds of them in Philadelphia, what are they going to do? Will they accept Hillary Clinton as a legitimate nominee or not? Will they demand that Bernie be put on the ticket?
Yep. Fascinating. Larry Sabato, it's always great to have your input. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks a lot. Enjoyed it.
All right, and joining me now is Democratic strategist Stephen Sigmund. Okay, Stephen, you're a Hillary supporter. What about the fact that some of these, let's assume that, just as Larry said, and he has a crystal ball most of the time, that Hillary wins. All of these people that Bernie Sanders Bernie brought in are, they're really at each other's throats. And because Bernie and Hillary are at each other's throats, I would think the millennials and some of the Hillary supporters are. Do they stay home?
No.
Or do they say, oh, enough, let me vote for Hillary?
I think they do the latter. I mean, look, we have a precedent for this, right? In 2008, there's an extremely close and contentious election between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. In fact, he was ahead on pledged delegates right now, less than she is ahead on pledged delegates to Bernie Sanders right now. And you had a very unified convention in 2008 where her supporters became his supporters.
Right.
And that's what will happen here, particularly with the millennials and the young voters, because they don't really. They're not Republican voters, right? I mean, if they're supporting Bernie Sanders, they're not Republican voters.
Well, I don't, Probably not, but I know that they're anti-establishment. And what's so unusual, I mean, this is like a reality show, this whole campaign.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you've got all of these young people who are, may not vote at all, and you've got Hillary pivoting so far left. Doesn't it affect her in the general?
Actually, I think that Bernie Sanders being in the race has helped her in the general because, one, it's made her a better candidate. It's made her a better candidate in the primary. That she's better when she's fighting than when she's being sort of regal, right?
Right.
And two, his saying over and over again that she is too moderate on, not increasing taxes enough, or not nationalizing health care, or not breaking up the big banks, almost helps her in a general, right? Because it moderates her for the general election audience.
Okay. And what is all of this about those Wall Street transcripts? I mean, it's becoming more of a drumbeat. Why won't she release them?
I don't know the answer. I mean, I sort of agree that she ought to release the transcripts.
But doesn't it tell you that she's afraid of some things that she said? Well, then why wouldn't she release them?
Because this has happened over and over again with her. I mean, I think she's, sure, with lots of different things. I mean, I think she to some degree legitimately thinks that there's a double standard, that there's a standard for her and then for everybody else, and it's tougher on her.
If she's willing,
therefore everybody should have to release them.
Yeah.
But she ought to release them.
Okay, Bernie Sanders doesn't have any paid speeches.
No, I
but
get
if
it,
she's willing to throw
a Republican challenge,
she's not in the Republican primary. I mean, really, Hillary, mind your own business. But if she is willing to throw her own husband under the bus for the omnibus crime bill in '94, why wouldn't she be willing to release her speeches for which she got like $800,000? Come on.
I think she ought to release the speeches.
You agree with
sure,
me, huh?
Yeah.
Kind of, maybe.
I agree that ultimately she will release the speeches and that she should release the speeches.
Did Bernie go to Rome because he knows he's not going to win New York?
I think Bernie went to Rome because he had an invitation to go, but he's
Who invited him?
He's sort of invited himself apparently.
Yeah.
But he's already moving on to California. The reality here is that she is very likely to win New York. I mean, it is the demographics that she's won before. She was elected twice overwhelmingly to the Senate in New York, so she's likely to win here.
Not to mention the superdelegates, the rigged convention.
She's ahead by 200 and 215 in pledged delegates, twice as much as Barack Obama was right now against her in 2008.
Right. And she is doing well in New York. Now, Pennsylvania's primary is the week after New York. Will she need to fight as hard in Pennsylvania as she did in New York?
I think she needs to fight hard everywhere. I mean, he's run a very good campaign. It's an anti-establishment kind of a year, right? But she is winning those big states. I mean, in general, except for Michigan, she has won every big state. He's won smaller states that match up with his demographics.
But don't you agree, Stephen, that this guy is really like a nobody who came out of nowhere?
Well, they all are. I mean, who thought
Not Hillary?
Who thought Donald Trump would be winning?
He's never been a nobody.
No,
Donald Trump has never been a nobody.
You're not kidding. He's not been a nobody, but nobody expected him to be the
You got to give him credit.
Republican
He never
nominee.
even ran for mayor. Stephen
Right.
Sigmund, thanks so much for being with us. Enjoyed having you tonight. And still ahead, I hit the streets of New York just days before the primary in tonight's Street Justice. And next, there he... Okay, all eyes on the Big Apple on Tuesday for that critical New York primary. Let's go in depth with our panel featuring experts from both sides of the aisle. With me now, Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh and former Republican Speaker for the Florida House of Representatives, Will Weatherford. Okay, guys, I'm going to get right to it. How are you tonight? So much for getting right to it. Now, what about the fact that we're hearing that, it seems that New York is already Hillary's, that she's going to win it. But according to a poll, Clinton is at 48% nationally and Sanders is at 46% nationally. So, Will, what say you?
Well, I think it shows that the socialist wing of the Democratic Party is a little bit bigger than everybody thought it was a few months ago. And I know Bernie Sanders has been hanging out in Rome today and yesterday, and that's probably because he knows he's going to lose in New York. And candidly, Judge, I think that Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee. Bernie Sanders has taken this race a little bit longer than people thought, but she's going to be the nominee.
She said she was going to have it done in February.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he surprised a lot of people, but the surprise has been there's a lot more socialists in the Democratic Party than I think anybody ever anticipated. We always suspected it, Judge, but now we know for sure.
Marianne, what do you think of the fact that now you've got, Hillary almost in a tie nationally with the socialist?
Well, national polls don't matter right now. The fact is you win these nominations. No, they don't. I mean, even general election matchup polls nationally don't matter right now. What matters are the state-by-state polls. What's interesting to me about the New York primary is I think you've seen a preview of the general election. When you look at how Donald Trump has campaigned in New York, you looked at how Hillary Clinton has campaigned, and that debate between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, I think, could look a lot like a Donald Trump-Hillary Clinton debate. So I think New York is already starting to show what the general election could look like in November. And to me, that's far more interesting. And voters don't focus on this race right now the way you do when you're in an individual state. They wait till you have a nominee in each party, and then they decide, which is why general election national polls do not matter right now.
Okay. Well, what about the fact that Hillary is pivoting left? Because she's in this thing with Sanders and apologizing for the word super predators. And, does that hurt her, or to her base, does it not matter?
Well, I think it absolutely hurts her. She has pivoted left. I think we've seen that. Again, Bernie has taken this race way longer than anyone anticipated and has dragged her further left than I think her people wanted her to go. But the biggest problem she faces, Judge, is that she's under criminal investigation for the email scandal, and we still don't know what's going to come from that. Yeah. And if I was her and her team, I'd be more nervous about that than even how left they've had to pull the political race.
If anything, and Marianne, I'll let you answer it, if anything, Hillary Clinton makes like there's nothing wrong. And when the president has signaled not once, not twice, but 3 times, tells me that it's a done deal. Marianne?
I think the president said in his interview last week with Chris Wallace that mistakes were made. He was right, but there were errors of omission, not commission. I don't expect any more to come out of this investigation, but I think the smart thing for everybody and the right thing to do is let the facts go where they go. No more leaks from the FBI and the agents and others who are investigating it, and let's see where the facts go, and then let's see where everything ends up. But I think that's the right thing to do right now. Let the campaign go on. Let the investigation go on. Let's see who wins in New York, and let's see how the investigation ends up.
Okay, Will, why is Kasich still in this? Is he a spoiler?
I have no idea. I mean, I think Governor Kasich's a nice guy. I mean, I think everybody wanted to see the Ted Cruz, Donald Trump head-to-head. I mean, that's essentially what we have, but we do have a spoiler in the race. I think he's a nice man. I think he's done a fine job as governor.
Well, if he's a spoiler,
but there's
why
no
is he
way
a nice
he's going to be the
man?
nominee. Well, I mean, I think he's a nice guy. He's done a fine job as governor of the state of Ohio, but he's truly a spoiler candidate. He's really making it harder for Ted Cruz. If Donald Trump becomes the nominee of the party, which, as you know, I'm not a big fan of his, but if he does, it will be because I think John Kasich has stayed in this race.
But yet John Kasich says that, the people who are supporting Trump and Cruz are going to the dark side. I mean, really? Who are you? Nobody even noticed you on the stage. Marianne, what do you think of that? What's going on with Kasich in this race? He's got no path. I don't know he's even got any money.
Exactly. I mean, he's a spoiler, no question about it. Cruz can't catch Trump. Kasich certainly can't catch Trump. He's not going to win another state. He won Ohio, that's it. So they're both just trying to stop Trump from getting to 1237. The fact is Donald Trump can still get to 1237 on June 7th. And in New York, the closer he gets to those 95 delegates, the more likely the fulcrum is. The bigger the fulcrum coming out of New York, the more likely he lands that on June 7th. So don't underestimate Donald Trump's ability to actually wrap this up on the last day of the primaries in this nominating process.
Will, what about California? Looking forward, June 7th. That's a big one.
Yeah, first I would say I agree that the focus is on trying to stop Donald Trump from getting the 1237. I disagree with Marianne. I don't think he will get there. I don't think he's going to get the 1237. And interesting, California is the big state that's hanging out there at the very end of this process. But I don't think anyone's going to have the 1,237 delegates. This is going to the convention. It's going to be close. I think it's anyone's ball game between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, and I think it's going to be a coin flip. And anybody that tells you that they know what's going to happen or they know who the nominee is going to be isn't telling the truth. This is completely
quickly. Will,
it's
if it
a new
goes
era.
to convention, let's assume it goes to convention. Who wins?
Paul Ryan.
I think,
Paul Ryan. Oh, and he said this week, forget
No.
it. Will,
Hey,
quickly.
look, I'd love for it to be Paul Ryan, but I think it's going to probably be Ted Cruz. If I had to guess today, if he's close, if it's within 100 delegates or 150 delegates,
Marianne,
and they start going to the second,
what are
third, and
the
fourth
chances
ballot.
Ted Cruz wins against Hillary Clinton?
I would love to run against Ted Cruz because he'd be the easiest one to beat. I know that playbook.
Yeah.
Bring him.
And it's Donald Trump you don't want Hillary to run against, correct?
It's a tough race. It's a tough race.
All right, guys, Marianne and Will, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, and next, I'm talking with a member of the Republican Rules Committee.